You are seen. You are worthy. You are not alone. The world loses one person to suicide every 40 seconds. Let's change the stats. Together, we can say not suicide. Not today.
Welcome to True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People, the podcast where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction, and reminding you that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. Here is your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People. Of course, I'm your man, David McClam. Hey, if you guys haven't already, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. One link to a link tree will get you every place you need to go pertaining to the show. All right, as you heard coming in, if you are somebody who is thinking about hurting themselves or someone else, please dial 988. You can reach them by text or by phone call. They will be able to get you the help that you need. And in case no one else has told you today, let me be the first to tell you I do care and we do need you here. Nothing in this world is worth your life. All right, before I begin, I do want to clear something up in case anybody took it wrong. From my last update episode, I was talking about ratings and stated that they did not matter. I did not mean that the ones that you guys have already left me or the feedback you give me now did not matter. If you took it that way, I apologize. What I was basically meaning to say is that number is not going to affect the way the show runs. It does help me gauge my engagement here on Apple Podcasts, but for the sake of these people trying to take my show down, that's not going to do it. To be honest, I think they should either get rid of the rating system or give the creators more control, because I think we should be able to go in and remove certain comments and ratings and even have the ability to block people. It is not fair that it is a one-way system, and there's a lot of web entities that's doing that. eBay is one of them that does the same thing. Somebody can leave you a negative review. You cannot reply to it or you can't remove it, and that's how I was there. So I did not mean it that way if that's how you took it. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. All right, so as promised, today we are going to dive into the case of NXIVM. I've been wanting to do this one for a little while, and so now we're going to get into it. NXIVM is spelled NXIVM, just in case you guys are looking for the spelling of that. And I will leave the Wikipedia and any other resources that I feel that you guys would need if you want to go check into this on your own. Well, this whole NXIVM story actually starts with Keith Raniere. And you come to find out next to Scientology, maybe Keith Raniere had more celebrities than any other cult that I have seen, even though it was only a few of them. So let's jump in. Keith Raniere was a man once seen as a brilliant mind during his college years, and he was expected to achieve greatness, but he ended up behind bars for finding NXIVM, one of the largest cults in U.S. history. Now, let me take you back a little bit. We'll journey back to July 20th of 1988. See, this is when Keith Raniere founded NXIVM, initially branded it as a personal development company that offers various self-improvement techniques. It all seemed legitimate at first, but as time passed, the true nature of NXIVM began to unfold. Fast forward to 2017, former members of NXIVM started coming forward, revealing the dark underbelly of the organization. Authorities wasted no time and launched an investigation into Raniere and his associates. This marked the beginning of the end for NXIVM. After nearly 1 year of thorough investigation, in March 2018, Keith Raniere was arrested. The charges were severe, including human trafficking, sex offenses, and fraud. The trial was intense, with several brave women testifying about the horrific experiences they endured under Raniere's control. Then in June 2019, justice was finally served. Raniere was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to a staggering 120 years in prison. He is currently serving his sentence at USP Tucson. So with that being said, we'll get deeper into that. But yeah, he's in prison right now. A lot of NXIVM followers is still there. They still fight for him. There was women actually that was sleeping outside of his jail cell window, I believe, when he was being held for trial and after he finally had got convicted, and they put him in a cell where he had the little window out, I guess, before they moved him. There's literally women that slept outside. They wanted to support Keith Raniere and didn't feel like anything that he did was wrong. So let's dig just a little bit deeper into Keith Raniere's journey. So NXIVM, founded in 1998, was heavily influenced by the teachings of Ayn Rand, one of Raniere's favorite authors. See, by 2003, the group was on everyone's radar when Forbes published an expose labeling Raniere as the world's strangest executive coach. Despite the exposure, NXIVM and its leader continued to thrive. The true horror emerged in 2017 when former members disclosed the existence of a secretive subgroup within NXIVM known as the Vow. The subgroup was referred to as DOS, or DOS, operated under disturbing conditions. New recruits were required to provide compromising information, including nude photographs, as collateral. The threats of public exposure kept members silent and compliant. If you guys have not heard of it, there is actually a series on Max, that's the HBO Max, but now it's just called Max, which is called The Vow. They did 2 seasons on that. Now, when we get into, we're talking about the collateral. As I said, there's things like nude photographs. Man, this guy was ruthless. So when you got into this DOS program, you're pledging, your life to him. And if you decide that you want to go outside of the group, they would expose you. Not only was there nude photographs, but they had some people that was actually telling deep, dark family secrets. And if they murdered somebody or if they knew somebody in their family that was wanted for a crime, and sometimes people were saying bad things against their family. And the threat was, if you got tired of this and you wanted to leave this secretive group, you would be exposed. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that DOS was only a group full of women. And when you got into this group, you had to go and take a brand. Now, Sarah Edmondson was one of these few celebrities that I've mentioned. If you don't know who Sarah Edmondson is, Sarah Edmondson played in movies like Scary Movie 4, The Barbie Diaries, Big Nothing, Student Bodies, Are You Afraid of the Dark? She also did voice work for Barbie Bratz and Polly Pocket, Clash of the Titans. She played in a Hallmark film called Geronimo Stilton. She was Thea Stilton, and also Lena in the Bratz movies, just to name a few. Well, Sarah Edmondson was one of the bravest people that was in NXIVM. And if you ever watched The Vow, she would tell you that she feels guilty because it's just like Scientology to a degree. You know somebody, you bring somebody else in, and then, you get sent to bring somebody else in. So they were talking to all their celebrity friends and all of their family members that they thought they could get in. But Sarah Edmondson was directly linked to the DOS program because when she got in, they said, you have to go and you have to take this mark. You have to take this brand. The brand was this tattoo that was right above her pelvic bone. All these women was made to get totally naked in this room. If you watch The Vow, she takes you through it step by step. So I'm just paraphrasing of what I remember what she said, because it's been a while since I've seen it. But basically, everybody in there is naked, and they have a guy or a girl, whoever it was, that's there with this branding iron. There's no sedative giving. They're not trying to dampen the pain. None of that. You just get this hot branding iron, and it's stuck right to the skin, and now you're branded forever. Now, if you look at this mark from one direction, it looks like it has KR. If you look at it from another direction, it looks like an AM. So essentially what they did was they branded the initials of the 2 heads of NXIVM, Keith Raniere and Allison Mack, into the skin, pretty much laying ownership. This mark was so damning to Sarah Edmondson that she didn't even tell her husband right away, and her husband didn't know what was going on with that. So that's just a little bit more into the DOS program and how damning this is and what they were made to do and exactly what collateral was. And you had to give this stuff up to get into this group. So when authorities began their investigation, it led to Raniere's arrest in March of 2018. Prosecutors highlighted his long history of exploiting young girls and women. The trial, which began in May of 2019, unveiled shocking testimonies from women who were groomed and abused by Raniere and his followers. The evidence painted Raniere as a manipulative predator running NXIVM as a covert sex cult. NXIVM used a variety of techniques to lower people's defenses and halt critical thinking. They didn't present themselves as a business, but as a pathway to fulfilling one's dreams. Thousands of individuals, many from affluent backgrounds, were drawn to NXIVM, enticed by Raniere's philosophy of rational inquiry, which he claimed was the key to higher consciousness. Members paid hefty fees for NXIVM courses, with some shutting out thousands of dollars. They were told that completing one course meant they were ready for the next, creating a never-ending cycle of payments. Former NXIVM consultant Frank Parlato is quoted as saying that only Raniere and a select few at the top made any substantial money, while the rest were left chasing an elusive dream. Eventually, authorities caught up with Raniere, and a judge sentenced him to 120 years in prison for his role in an offshoot of NXIVM, where women were enslaved, forced into sexual acts, and branded with his initials. Raniere was convicted of racketeering and sex trafficking, and the 2019 indictment alleged that he orchestrated a series of pyramid schemes designed to serve his desires. Now, what does that sound like? I'd already told you about the brand, so there you go again. It looks like his initials along with Allison Max. On top of that, though, what does that system sound like? If you ever dig into Scientology, it sounds just like Scientology. Matter of fact, it has been rumored that Keith Raniere did kind of base NXIVM off of Scientology. Scientology had courses and books and enlightenment that you had to keep paying for, and you kept paying him and you kept going up the ladder. You got, I call them scarves. They draped around, different color scarves or sashes, whatever you want to call them, showed that where you was at in the NXIVM organization. So it was kind of the same thing. And all these people were just paying in money. Now, before anybody says they're so weak-minded and stuff, a lot of cults suck people in at the wrong time of life. They could be going through something, or you could just be that smooth at talking. I mean, Charlie Manson was exactly one of those. He wasn't necessarily a good-looking dude. He didn't have all this sex appeal, but he can talk and say the things you needed to hear and the things you wanted to hear just to bring you in. If you ever hear Keith Raniere talk, he was in that same vein. And he would sit there and talk to you and just, you feel like you're getting enlightened. And if you're at that one part of life where you feel like you just need something and no one's giving it to you, it would be very easy to get sucked into what he was saying. Now, during the 2019 criminal case against Keith Raniere, prosecutors alleged that starting in 2002, Raniere exerted a Svengali-like control over a Mexican family who moved from Monterey to the NXIVM community in Albany. The three sisters in this family eventually became his sexual partners. The eldest, Mariana, even had a child with Raniere. And the middle sister, Daniela, testified that she was groomed from a young age and began a sexual relationship with Raniere just days after turning 18. The youngest, Carmilla, stated that Raniere began sexually abusing her when she was only 15. The prosecution established that Raniere impregnated each sister at various times and forced them to get abortions. Daniela testified that Pam Catfritz, a close associate, coached them to refuse answering questions about paternity to prevent mandated reporters from discovering their abuse. According to Daniela's testimony, Raniere claimed to have mystical powers, promising spiritual growth through sex, and the sisters were strongly discouraged from discussing their sexual relationships, even among themselves. Beginning in 2010, Daniela was confined to a bedroom for 2 years on the pretext of having stolen money. In reality, her confinement began when she expressed romantic feelings for another man. Raniere accused her of an ethical breach and had Nancy Salzman oversee her correction. Daniela described her room's harsh conditions, blacked out windows, a mattress on the floor, and limited contact with Salzman. Other family members were instructed to shun her. Her confinement ended in 2012 after a near suicide attempt, leading Daniela to flee the NXIVM community. She later confronted Raniere at a volleyball game, but was escorted out and left at the U.S.-Mexico border with less than $80. Now, Nancy Saltzman corroborated Daniela's account during the trial, admitting the abuse. She testified about rejecting Daniela's attempts to leave the room and Raniere's dismissive attitude towards Daniela's pleas for release. At the trial, prosecutors also highlighted the sexual exploitation of Camilla, Daniela's younger sister. Through Daniela's testimony, hospital records, and explicit photos found in Raniere's home, they painted a grim picture of Camilla's abuse. WhatsApp messages revealed Raniere considered Camilla his slave and tasked her with finding more sex slaves. Although Camilla did not testify, she confirmed the abuse in her victim impact statement at Raniere's sentencing. She revealed that her relationship with Raniere began when she was 15 and lasted for 12 years, leading to severe emotional and physical harm. Someone said she was his sex slave. That really is what he looked as the women that was in the DOS program as. That's awesome is that the DOS program was created exactly just for that. It was created for Keith Raniere and his sexual needs. That's what these women was there for. That's why the brand had KR in it. So this guy has been sick for a long period of time. I saw a video of one of these young ladies, can't remember which one it was, but now I think she does public speaking about this, and she's constantly speaking out about the horrors that she suffered at the hands of Keith Raniere. She's very brave and she's very strong. As I'm finding out now with some of the things that I've been dealing with, it can cost people their livelihood and their sanity just by doing the right thing and blowing a whistle. And essentially, that's what she's doing at this point now. Even though he's been convicted, she's still blowing that whistle to let everybody know the damage that Keith Raniere did to all of them. Now, Raniere's predatory behavior extended beyond these sisters. See, because in 1984, 24-year-old Raniere seduced and raped 15-year-old Gina Melita and her 14-year-old friend, Gina Hutchinson. Hutchinson continued her relationship with Raniere until her tragic suicide in 2002, spurred by Raniere's manipulative suggestions about suicide. Another victim, Kristen Snyder, an environmental consultant, paid $7,000 for NXIVM courses in 2002. After claiming she was pregnant with Raniere's child, Snyder disappeared in 2003, leaving behind a note detailing her brainwashing and emotional torment. Her body was never found. Now, we've already talked about DOS just a little bit, but I want to go back and give you some things I didn't say, like what the names mean. So forgive me if I slaughter the name, but DOS indeed was created in 2015. DOS stands for Dominus Obsequias Sororium, a Latin phrase that translates to master over slave. And of course, it was operated with a hierarchy structure where women known as slaves were led by masters. See, each slave was expected to recruit more slaves, therefore climbing the ranks to become masters themselves. The chain of command extended upwards, with each slave owing service to their direct master and the masters above them. Approximately 150 women became part of DOS, with Raniere as the sole male reigning at the top as the Grand Master. Now, he initially recruited only 8 women to join DOS. That included well-known figures like Allison Mack, Nikki Klein, and Lauren Saltzman. See, these women became his inner circle and served as DOS' first line masters. They were tasked with recruiting new members, presenting DOS as an empowering women-only organization, and the true nature of DOS and Raniere's leadership role was hidden from the recruits. Now, before I kind of elaborate a little bit on that, the one other thing that I did forget to mention is we did talk about collateral. They did have to give that stuff up, the sex explicit photos and, talks about their feelings bad. But what I did mention is they were also expected, though, to give up new collateral every month. So the stuff you already gave wasn't good enough. We need new stuff so that if you go out and say anything, this is newer stuff so we can say that, we just got it. So they're required to do this every month. And again, it was held over their head as a constant threat, which was ensuring their obedience and their silence, and that they would not leave the group. Now, the other thing that kind of was a lie is that the women also was told that their collateral could be released if they left DOS, spoke out about it, or failed to meet DOS obligations. That's a lie, because you have that kind of stuff. I think Raniere is the kind of dude that would have just leaked it. Now, I want to step back because I did just mention that the recruits didn't know who the leaders were. Now, this was all planned out with Keith Raniere. If I remember the vow, it's all in the vow. He pretty much, I think, went to Allison Mack or Laura Salson, one of the two, and pretty much said, I got this idea for this group. He wanted all these women to join this group, but he did not want them to know he was behind it. So they were told that Keith was not even saying anything, that Keith was not a part of DOS, that yes, he is the head of NXIVM, but he's not a part of DOS. Anything that they're being sent is not being sent to him. So these women really thought that it was a quote unquote all women's organization. In fact, all of these collaterals and stuff was sent directly to Keith Raniere. There was also videotapes that was made and things like that was sent directly to Keith Raniere. Like, for instance, when they went through this whole entire DOS initiation, if you want to call it that, where they were getting the brand, this was video recorded and it was given to Keith Raniere. And if you look at his hierarchy, he recruited 8 women. Allison Mack and Nikki Klein and Lauren Salzman was 3 of these. They were looked at as first-line masters. Now, Allison Mack ended up becoming Sarah Edmondson's master. So see, if you bring in women, then you get bumped up and you become one of these first-line masters yourself, which means that you now have a slave. And this person answered directly to that particular person. And it's ridiculous, people. I mean, you can do things like anytime your master calls, you got to answer the phone. If you don't, there was hell to pay. So they can call you up in the middle of the night and be like, get out of your bed and go run around and do 18 jumping jacks. And you better get up and run around and do 18 jumping jacks. Even though that person is not there, they believe that you're going to do that because you instructed them to do it. I mean, it was a whole mind game. You guys really need to go and watch The Vow. Now, Raniere's manipulation extended way deep into the psyche of the women that were part of DOS. He used fear and coercion to maintain his grip on the group. The trusted, first-line masters executed his commands and helped build the DOS hierarchy. They lured women with promises of empowerment and personal growth only to trap them in a web of abuse and control. So yeah, a lot of the commands came from Keith Raniere. If he liked Susan Jones, he would call up the first-line master that was over Susan Jones and say, make Susan Jones take off her top and take a picture. So the first time I ever call and say, I want you to get up right now, take off your top and take a picture. In which this person would do that because, they're in this master-slave relationship and this is what they agreed to do. And these will go directly to Keith Raniere. But none of these women knew this. The only women that did know it was the women that was in his direct, Nikki and Allison and Lauren. Now, the horror that DOS was should be a reminder of the lengths to which Keith Raniere went to exploit and dominate. See, by creating this structure that demanded absolute loyalty and subservience, Keith Raniere was able to turn the concept of empowerment into a tool for manipulation. The women of DOS, many of whom joined seeking strength and community, found themselves enslaved in a nightmare. As I wrap up this deep dive into the dark and twisted world of Keith Raniere and NXIVM, I am reminded of the chilling depths of human manipulation and exploitation. See, Keith Raniere's ability to twist the hopes and dreams of his followers into tools of control and abuse is a stark warning about the dangers of blind trust and unchecked power. I hope from me talking to you today about this group, if you guys have never heard of it, that you would take these lessons to heart and remain vigilant against those who would exploit our desires for betterment for their own sinister purposes. And remember, the search for truth and the exposure of wrongdoing are crucial in ensuring that such horrors are never repeated. Because, see, the fact of the matter is that everybody who joined this group or joined NXIVM thought that they were going to some type of empowerment class. That's why you had some of these celebrities that came. They were having some struggles in acting, or maybe they wasn't getting the gigs that they wanted. And the game that Keith Raniere was spilling was, if you come over here, I can help you with the struggles that you have. This is supposed to be just a class to maybe get some counseling or some self-empowerment or some growth or some help with how to cope with life. And it ended up that they were in this deadly group, and it was even more deadly for women when it came to DOS. So we do have to be careful of who we listen to and make sure that what we're hearing is what we need to be hearing and that somebody's not trying to twist it. Keith Raniere is in jail for 120 years, which means he is never getting out. I'm glad of that. That takes one more of these cults off of the market. And so the people that are still in it, I hope that they do find solace somewhere. Because, yeah, like I said, there's still even if it's a small group of people that still believes in NXIVM, they still believe in Keith Raniere. They would still do things for him if he was to call out. They tried to bail him out. You know, they've done everything that they possibly can. So if you do find yourself in one of these groups or in a group like it and you feel that is wrong, it's best for you to go ahead and try to get out if you can. And if you can't do anything else, at least try to reach out for help if that presents itself to you. All right, guys, I thank you for joining me on this one. It is great to be back. Great to get this story out to you. I hope you guys did take something from NXIVM. I'll leave you some resources down here if you want to look into it further. Make sure you go and check out The Vow. It is 2 seasons worth of all this stuff here. It lays it out flat for you. You'll hear from some of these women that I mentioned. One of the ones I didn't mention, just so that you know what the money was that was flowing through there. You know, the Bronfman sisters was part of this. Claire Bronfman and her sister. If you don't know who the Bronfman sisters is, well, if you drink alcohol, you probably certainly put money in their pockets because they are the heiresses to the Seagram's gin empire. And a lot of the things that Keith Raniere had bankrolled was bankrolled by the Bronfman sisters. This is how he could actually really operate beyond the money he was drawing in from people just paying him. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Glad to be back. Of course, we'll be back next week with an author for you that will be coming on the line. So back to our regular schedule author, then you're going to hear from an extraordinary person. And then I'll be back that following week with another fascinating true crime story for you. Once again, thank you for sticking with me through this time. I appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to follow us on all of the social media. If you want to leave a comment and a rating, whatever you feel the show is worth, make sure you do that down below if you are on an iOS device on any system that allows you to leave a rating. All right, so thank you once again. I know you have many choices in true crime and interview podcasts. I'm grateful that for the last 2.5 years, I have been one of the ones that you have chosen. You have been listening to the only 3-faceted podcast of its kind. Be good to yourself and each other, and always remember, always stay humble. An act of kindness can make someone's day. A little love and compassion can go a long way. And remember that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. One link to the link tree has it all. Feel free to drop us a line at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Cover art and logo designed by Arslan. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wilde and David McClam. Theme music, Legendary, by New Alchemist. Introduction and ending credits by Jackie Voice. See you next time on True Crime, Authors, and Extraordinary People.